Okay, so I just left a greenhouse and I noticed there's a ton of perennials on sale, and I thought to myself, because I'm a YouTuber now, I thought to myself, how many people in the Gardening Canada crew see those discount plants and wonder whether or not it's worth the money to actually grab them? And so I looked through the plants, I took some footage of said plants, and honestly, they discount everything the same, regardless of whether or not it's going to survive. So let's head home and do an entire video on how to select perennials properly and what ones are going to live and which ones are going to die, and exactly how to plant these as well in our garden. Let's head home.
So I think the first question anyone asks when they see things such as perennials on sale is, are they all damaged or are there some gems in there? And that seems to be the truth from what I've seen. The reason why these plants generally go on sale, especially in colder climates, is because despite our best efforts, overwintering any perennial in a pot is very difficult. The exception to this may be things such as tubers or bulbs. And if the greenhouse has enough personnel to go in, dig these bulbs and tubers out, they may choose to store them and then restart them for the following year. However, this is rarely the case, and therefore they go on sale. This means we have the opportunity to find some healthy perennials on sale that will last us next year. The key here is to perform a test or two to ensure that they're healthy enough to bring home and survive. And that's exactly what we're going to look at in this video.
Hello plant people, how are you guys doing today? If you're new around here, my name's Ashley and I'm a soil scientist. On this channel, I like to take that science and apply it to all things plants. And in today's video, we are very clearly talking about those discount perennials that we see at the greenhouse or at the grocery store and trying to determine whether or not it is worth our money. Now, it goes without saying that the plants that are on sale are usually in a rougher appearance. It's very rare that a plant will survive an entire season in a pot and come out on the other side looking clean and good. But the goal of this video is to give you the tools to be able to determine what a healthy plant looks like and what an unhealthy plant looks like, and whether or not we should spend our money and where to spend our money on these discount perennials. I could do an entire video on how to properly plant these in the fall so that they can overwinter outside, but I do have a blog post about that as well. If you are out at the greenhouse and you need a checklist to go through of all the different things that we talk about today to help you determine in action what you need to do, then also be sure to check out that blog post. I will leave the links for those down in the comments and then also the description box below. You're going to be hearing the 30% rule a lot in this video. I'm going to be saying it over and over and over again, and it is kind of the key when determining what plants are healthy and which ones are not, and kind of what we're looking for visually. We can break these perennials down into two groups. The first group being fibrous root systems, and the second group being bulbs, tubers, and actual organelles that are placed underground. The fibrous root system version is the version that we will touch on first because they do have different requirements when we're looking for a healthy plant. When we look at fibrous root system perennials, these can come in all different shapes and sizes, from sedum to bushes such as hydrangea or fruit bush, trees, things of that nature. Stuff that does not have a bulb attached to it will fall into this category. First thing that we want to look at is the actual roots itself. I'm just going to show you guys real quick how to do a root assessment of any plant, houseplant, perennial, whatever the case is. The houseplant people are probably pretty familiar with this because root rot is a plant, houseplant community issue all around, but the perennial people or just the gardeners in general probably don't have a good idea of how to check the root biomass on an actual plant. One thing I will say, regardless of what you're doing, you want to look up the root color for the plant you're dealing with. The colors can range, so you can end up with white roots, red roots, orange roots, brown roots, you name it. What we're looking for is dark brown, black, mushy, wet looking, or deflated looking roots. This is a sign of poor root quality. What we want is plump and of the appropriate color for the type of plant you're looking at. So a quick Google search will show you what the roots look like on a plant. Just type it in to the system. Say you're looking for an estable, which is a fibrous root system perennial. Look up estable roots and then just look at the images that pop up on Google, and it will give you a good idea of what color the roots should be when you remove them from the pot. Here I have obviously a house plant, but inside said house plant is roots. So this guy is obviously thriving. So right off the bat, probably a good indication that the roots are just fine. But if we want to quickly check, all you need to do is take the plant, flip it upside down, and give it a light little squeeze, kind of massage it out. And then as it comes out of the container, we can see the actual roots there. We can tell here that we have white roots and they are plump and healthy looking. What we are looking for unhealthy is deflated looking roots, but none of these look deflated. They look inflated and therefore they look awesome. So that is how we check our root system on our plant. Again, some dead roots may happen. You will see them, especially if it's spent an entire summer in the heat, being overwatered, underwatered, whatever the case is, at a greenhouse. You're going to have some root desiccation, but we just need it to be under the 30% mark. If we know it's under 30%, we're made in the shade. So after we're done looking at the roots, we can then move to the above ground foliage. And the above ground foliage for a fibrous root system is going to fall into two categories. The first one being strictly leafy greens, which would be what we would find in the event of having a hosta or a woody stem such as a hydrangea. If we look at the grass version or the greenery version of this, we're looking for less than 30% damage or die off of the plant. Now, if it is a greenhouse or someone that has a higher reputation, they may be cleaning up the pots. So if we can't see any dead leaves, we're looking for what we would suspect would be a 30% loss of foliage given the size of the pot in general. If the loss or the disease or the dead foliage seems like it's over 30%, this is probably a plant we want to stay away from. If it seems like it's less than 30%, then this may be something to consider. The dead and the dying foliage and any root damage that may have occurred with a fibrous root system generally has to do with either lack of water or too much water, or it could be actually the heat. With a fibrous root system, we can end up with root rot from overwatering. We can end up with just root die off in the event of underwatering, and we can end up with sunburn or heat exhaustion on the actual leaf themselves, and sometimes actually the roots as well. So if you know that the perennials were kept indoors in a greenhouse in an area that could be shaded, this is an even better bet that the plant is just fine. If we have a plant such as a hydrangea bush, for example, where we have woody stems with leaves, again, we're going with that 30% rule. The only thing is that with the 30% rule for leaves, we may notice that the tree appears to be full, but if we actually shake the plant, we may notice that a lot of leaves fall off. If we were doing this, we want to shake the plant and then check how many leaves are left behind. If again it is 30% or less that is lost or looks damaged, then this is probably a good bet. Another test that we can do with anything that has a woody bush-like structure or a tree-like structure is actually giving those branches just a little bit of a bend. Once we bend the branch, we should have a bounce back, or it should be green inside and fleshy and moist kind of looking. If it just simply snaps, then it most likely is dead and deceased. If over 30% of the plant is easily snappable, then that is not a great choice. However, if you lose the leaves and you're noticing that when you bend the branches that a majority of the plant actually isn't snapping, then it may be just fine. And the leaf loss, again, could be due to overcrowding or to the sun temperature. So roots and leaves, we're looking for 30% or more damage. If it is 30% or more damage, then it is no good. But if it passes the 30% rule, the roots look good, the above foliage looks okay, then it's probably a pretty good bet that the plant will do just fine at home. The next ones are the tubers. So these could be, rhizomes. These could be the actual tubers like we see on iris. These could be bulbs like we see on lilies or allium, that sort of thing. These have a bit of a different function, and because they have an actual storage mechanism, they tend to do a little bit better in regards to overwintering. Now, these aren't always on sale. They'll probably be on sale at your Canadian Tires, your grocery stores, things of that nature. If they are in a nursery or a greenhouse, it is likely that they will remove the bulbs and actually restart them next year, because the bulbs and the tubers are most likely just fine. And because in a greenhouse when everything's overcrowded and smushed together, if there was a lapse in judgment when it came to watering and the plant was underwatered, the bulb and that plant is most likely okay. Whereas with the fibrous root system plant, if we forget to water for too long, or one specific plant is continually missing the mark when it comes to collecting water that is sprayed onto the actual plants themselves, then we may suffer more damage that cannot be fixed later on. The worry when it comes to bulbs and tubers is actually overwatering and rotting. So the best way to check this is actually looking for the bulb on the surface of the soil. By this time, it's likely that gravity, the watering process, and just the manipulation of the plant in the greenhouse has probably resulted in some soil loss. So finding that bulb or tuber actually shouldn't be that hard. And once we do find it, we just want to simply give it a little bit of a push and see if it has any flex to it. If it feels mushy, squishy, or flexy whatsoever, then it's probably not a great choice, and we actually want to steer away from those. However, if we touch them and they feel relatively firm, then this is a pretty good bet that the plant will be just fine. The bonus when it comes to tubers and bulbs is so long as the tuber, the bulb, is firm and doesn't show any signs of discoloration, the above biomass actually doesn't matter too much. Whether it's dead, alive, whatever it looks like, it doesn't matter. So the 30% rule when it comes to bulbs and tubers doesn't actually apply as much. Now, something important to think about would be if the tuber or the plant has some sort of disease or indication of bacterial or fungal issues, then again, we're going to have to steer our way away from that plant. If you're unsure whether or not the plant has a fibrous root system or if the plant has a bulbous root system, your best bet for the most part is actually asking the people who work there, because there's a likelihood that they will have a pretty good idea of what each plant is. If not, then you may have to do just a tiny bit of digging, and ultimately they probably don't care if the plants are already on discount to begin with. There you guys have it, the full guide when it comes to finding perennials on discount. This can be a huge benefit. You can seriously decorate a yard way more efficiently money-wise when you have these discounted perennials. So it's definitely something to consider if you are in Saskatchewan for the recovery plan this year. Actually, perennial plants and outdoor landscaping plants fall into the category of the tax return that is available through the government here, the provincial government here. So look for things like that in your provinces as well. COVID has been a blessing in the sense for gardeners. If you're looking to landscape or to change, your area, go grab those discount perennials. There's a tax return involved. Just make sure you're selecting ones that will bounce back the following year. If you do want a video on how to plant these plants in the fall, be sure to let me know in the comments down below. As always, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye.